The dawn haze hovered over the plains of Tamale, settling softly between the acres of farmland that stretched farther than the eye could see. Soon the sun would pierce through, illuminating the quiet, fertile land that held the potential to feed nations. Farmers were already awake, machetes gleaming, boots muddy, spirits high. They did not yet know that before the year ended their world, and Africa's, would change forever. What began as a whisper along the dusty roads of northern Ghana would soon echo across continents. India was preparing to sign a $70 billion megadeal, the largest agricultural partnership in African history, and Ghana was to become the beating heart of the new Pan-African food revolution. And as with every seismic shift in geopolitics, it started not with fanfare, but with a secret meeting. The meeting took place in a discreet, dimly lit room within Ghana's Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Only 4 individuals attended: Ghana's President Ama Sirwa Boateng, Agriculture Minister Kwame Oteng, India's External Affairs Minister Rajiv Deshmukh, and a soft-spoken technologist from Bengaluru known only as Kiran. Deshmukh had come with a proposal that seemed almost fantastical in its scale: a multi-decade agricultural transformation pact that would bind India and Ghana in an unprecedented alliance. "Madam President," Deshmukh said, sliding a tablet across the table, "India wants to invest not only in Ghana, but in Africa's future through Ghana. We want to build the continent's most advanced agricultural ecosystem: technology, logistics, research, processing, exports, everything. And we believe Ghana is uniquely positioned to lead this movement." President Boateng studied the projection, satellite images of Ghana's vast arable lands, mapped against rainfall cycles, soil profiles, vegetation patterns, and transportation routes. Layered atop it were Indian agricultural AI systems, precision drone networks, irrigation grids, and global market access pathways. "This," she whispered, "is a new kind of independence." Deshmukh nodded. "And a new kind of partnership. One without chains. One built on shared strength." Within an hour, the foundation was set. Not a contract, not yet, but a vision. One that would usher in a world where Africa fed itself, Asia supported Africa as an equal, and the global South rewrote the rules of a system built in colonial boardrooms. But it would take months of secrecy, diplomacy, and political maneuvering to turn the vision into reality. The megadeal was nearly derailed before it even began. Powerful Western stakeholders, long accustomed to controlling Africa's agricultural future through aid, loans, and conditional agreements, sensed something shifting. Agricultural giants based in the U.S. and Europe, companies that had spent decades dominating fertilizer markets, seed technology, and food export pricing, began raising alarms. They feared losing control over one of the world's most resource-rich food baskets. Diplomats quietly visited Accra to discourage the deal. Lobbyists in Washington published white papers questioning the viability of Ghana partnering too closely with India. European media outlets suddenly aired documentaries portraying African megaprojects as high-risk ventures, a subtle attempt to muddy public perception. But Ghana held firm. For too long, it had been advised to think small, borrow cautiously, and accept crumbs. Now, with India promising technology instead of dependence, infrastructure instead of interference, and partnership instead of paternalism, the country saw its chance to rise. And India, backed by its own history of overcoming colonization and building agricultural self-reliance, would not be intimidated either. Then came the moment everything changed. A secret intelligence brief leaked from a Western think tank implying that India's growing agricultural footprint in Africa could rewrite global food power balances. Instead of deterring Accra, the leak ignited a surge of Pan-African determination. Social media across the continent erupted with pride. Let Africa rise. Let Ghana lead. Let the global South unite. The pressure only strengthened resolve. Ghana and India quietly began drafting the megadeal. When the announcement finally came 8 months later, it shook the entire world. At a grand outdoor ceremony in Accra's Independence Square, beneath fluttering Ghanaian and Indian flags, President Boateng and Prime Minister Meta stepped onto the podium. The crowd roared, reporters surged forward, drones buzzed overhead, and millions watched the live stream across Africa and Asia. Today, President Boateng declared, her voice echoing across the square, we sign a $70 billion vision. A vision of African self-sufficiency. A vision of South-South cooperation. A vision that will transform Ghana into Africa's food powerhouse. The applause was deafening. Prime Minister Meta spoke next. Our partnership honors the past, strengthens the present, and builds the future. India believes in Ghana, not as a beneficiary, but as a partner. Not as a passive player, but as a leader. And with a flourish of pens, the mega deal was sealed. The implementation phase began immediately, and it reshaped Ghana from the ground up. Indian engineers arrived to help build vertical farms in Accra and Kumasi, Drone Command agriculture centers in Tamale, and Africa's largest seed research institute in Cape Coast. Artificial intelligence systems powered by Bengaluru-based algorithms predicted rainfall patterns, optimized fertilizer use, and prevented crop failures weeks before they happened. A new $30 billion processing corridor connecting Tecumseh to Tema Port emerged, lined with factories that processed cocoa, cashews, maize, rice, and soy into high-value exports. Indian-built agritech training academies opened their doors, teaching Ghanaian youth how to pilot agricultural drones, manage automated irrigation, and analyze climate data. The country became the first in Africa to deploy a national agricultural blockchain system, ensuring transparency from seed to supermarket shelf. Within a year, agricultural productivity rose by 47%. Within 3 years, Ghana had become Africa's leading food exporter. Within 5 years, it was supplying markets across the Middle East, South Asia, and Europe. What once seemed impossible became inevitable. But geopolitics never rests, and no nation rises without causing ripples. As Ghana ascended, African nations looked on with renewed hope. Kenya, Senegal, Rwanda, and Namibia sought to join the agricultural ecosystem. A continent-wide food distribution grid began forming, designed in Ghana, supported by India, and owned by Africa collectively. This sparked quiet panic across certain capitals in the West. If Africa no longer relied on northern agricultural imports, if India helped break monopolies over seeds and fertilizers, the global power balance would tilt. In response, Western development agencies offered Ghana billions in alternative financing. But the offers came with conditions Ghana no longer needed. Then a more serious strategy emerged, attempts to sow political friction within Ghana itself. Funding went toward NGOs that criticized the mega deal as neo-colonial despite it being the opposite. Lobbyists tried to incite divisions in parliament. There were even attempts to disrupt the supply chain through cyber attacks, traced back to a private contractor working for a foreign government. But India's cyber defense teams quickly deployed to Ghana, setting up an Indo-African digital shield to secure agricultural networks. The alliance held strong, and the pressure only strengthened their bond. Meanwhile, Ghana's transformation was rewriting the story of what Africa could be. Farmers who once depended on seasonal hope now managed AI-assisted farms. Young people who once dreamed of leaving for Europe now found high-tech agricultural careers at home. Women's cooperatives used Indian-designed mobile apps to sell produce directly to African and Asian markets, bypassing middlemen for the first time. Northern Ghana, long overlooked, became the center of continental food innovation, home to modern irrigation dams, solar-powered storage hubs, and advanced seed labs. Africa began feeding Africa, and Ghana began feeding the world. Then came the global shock. An unexpected drought devastated major food-producing regions across the Northern Hemisphere, North America, Europe, and parts of China. Food prices soared. Markets panicked. Superpower capitals scrambled for steady supplies. The world was unprepared, except for 2 nations, India and Ghana. Together, they coordinated emergency exports that stabilized global food prices, gained enormous strategic leverage, and demonstrated the power of a South-South agricultural alliance. The old system had cracked, and through the cracks, a new world emerged. A world where Africa was not dependent, but indispensable. A world where India was not a secondary power, but a central pillar of global stability. By the 15th year of the mega deal, historians began calling the partnership the Accra Agrarian Revolution. Economists called it the South-South Development Miracle. Political scientists called it a geopolitical realignment rooted in agriculture. But for the people of Ghana, the meaning was simpler. It meant food security. It meant dignity. It meant sovereignty. It meant possibilities that their grandparents could not have imagined. In Tamale, An elder farmer named Moro Issa put it best during an interview. We always had the soil. We always had the sun. We only needed someone who saw us as equals. The final symbolic moment came 2 decades after the deal. At the African Union headquarters, Ghana was officially recognized as the continent's agricultural leader and was tasked with guiding the newly formed Pan-African Food Security Bloc, which linked production zones across 25 countries with distribution hubs stretching from Dakar to Dar es Salaam. In a speech broadcast to 1.5 billion Africans, President Boateng, now retired but honored as Africa's agricultural matriarch, summarized the journey. We built this future with our own hands. India walked beside us, not ahead. Today, Africa stands not as a market, but as a power. And we will never again be silenced, underestimated, or told to wait. Thunderous applause filled the hall. A new chapter in world history had begun. In the end, the $70 billion megadeal was far more than an investment agreement. It was a declaration of unity across continents, a rebirth of Pan-African strength, a turning point for the global South. Ghana grew, India rose, Africa awakened, and the world, long ruled by distant capitals, now looked to Accra and New Delhi for solutions, stability, and leadership. The soil of Ghana had fed nations. The partnership had fed hope. And together, they had proven that the future did not belong to those who controlled the past. It belonged to those who dared to rewrite it.